Budget Review Committee to order. It's June 8th, 2023. We're in the Aldermatic Chamber. It's 7 o'clock. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman John Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Ernest Jettie.
Here.
Alderman June Karen.
Here.
Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly. Alderman at Large Laurie Wilshire.
Here.
Alderman at Large Michael B. O'Brien Sr. is present. And our chairman, Alderman Richard A. Dowd.
Present.
Also in attendance is Chief Rourke, Police Chief of National Police Department. Also with him is Deputy Fay of NPD, Karen Smith, Business Manager of NPD, and we'll recognize Jim Toner as President of the Board of Commissioners of NPD.
Nick Dow. Don't forget Nick Dow.
Oh,
Matt
and
Plant.
Alderman Tom Lopez, did I mention you?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Matt Plant.
Matt
Matt Plant. the-
Matt Plant, okay, you want them, okay.
Sorry.
All right. First item of business is public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to provide public comment on the police budget? Seeing no one, we'll move on. Communications,
There is none,
unfinished business,
there is none,
new business resolutions,
none,
new business ordinances,
none.
and tabled in committee. We're going to skip our 23-118 to the regular budget meeting. And Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, before us this evening is 23-125, which is relative to the adoption of the fiscal year 2024 proposed budget for the City of Nashua General Enterprise and Special Revenue and Grant Funds. Mr. Chairman, I move to move 23-125 from the table.
Okay, the motion is to take R 23-125, the budget, from the table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, tonight we're going to be covering the Department 150, the Police Department, revenues on page 101, appropriations on 102. Whoever wants to speak, would you come up? Yeah, definitely don't forget Karen.
Plenty of seats.
Make sure
Want to
Karen's
mention?
Your right hand, huh?
would.
Chief and company, when you go to speak individual, can you repeat your names? That way the person transcribing this who does not recognize the voice will put you down appropriately. Would appreciate it, thank you.
And while I'm sure your officers realize you have a loud voice, would you bring the microphones close to you so that it can be picked up by the TV? Just kidding. Okay, who wants to start us off?
I'll go first. Kevin Rourke, Chief of Police. Good evening. This evening, we have our FY24 budget before you, which includes the payroll and operational needs of the police department. In the past year, we've had a slower rate of hiring than we expected. That's not, the effort was there, the candidates weren't, or qualified candidates, I will say. We hired 14 officers in the last fiscal year. We lost 12. That lost 12 of them. 9 of them were to resignations from officers, 1 year of service, all the way up to 13 years of service. That doesn't happen at the National Police Department. We lose guys to retirement, not with people 1 to 13 years on. So that was a big hit last year for us. People that we did not expect to leave. It's more of a retention problem at this point, and I think some of it is in doing exit interviews. Just so you know, is the retirement bill, which is a big ticket item right now, as you all know. Many of them went into the private sector of those 9. which is unfortunate. We're losing people out of profession is not a good thing, especially at these times. Unfortunately, we did not have the opportunity to use the escrow funding, which were provided to us, and we're very grateful that you supported that at the end of last year. Our intentions, we made some changes with hiring, where you approved a part-time recruiting officer who was very instrumental in doing backgrounds, getting out to the colleges. It was not due to a lack of effort, I can tell you that, because we did put a lot of pressure on ourselves and the Professional Standards Bureau to hire people. We started even further out, where we started a safety cadet program in the high school, thinking long-term to try to get younger individuals to be interested in the police department or work in that profession. So we have even looked further out, not a short-term fix. So that, we'll see that pay off hopefully in a couple of years when they turn 21. Meanwhile, the resolution in the process is to reallocate the funds to the much-needed expendable trust overtime account. The budget before you includes the addition of 2 first-year certified officers and 1 sergeant. As you know, the city is rapidly growing in the housing development. We have a casino that's moving from Boston Billiards down to Exit 1. There's also talk of another casino going into the Pheasant Lane Mall, which we hear. Right now, we have 1 officer that covers that area, so they will definitely be overwhelmed. We'll have to reallocate our sources down there. We did an assessment a few years ago, as you remember, I've spoke about before, where the assessment is from the International Chiefs Association, where they come up with a formula of the city the size, the calls we handle, motor vehicle stops, and they recommended that the city of our size and what we handle should have 12 additional officers. So that's why last year, when the escrow came out, we asked for additional officers, because our plan was to get up to full staff and keep pushing forward. So this year, we asked for 2. I don't want to get to the point in the city where I'm coming to you and asking, I need 10 more guys. And just a comparison, the city of Manchester, who, is a little busier than us and has a little bit more of a population and land-wise, they have 260 police officers. Also, just south of us, Lowell, they have 250 police officers. We have 181. So we definitely have to look at that, especially the growth of our city growing with the housing development, which is a good thing, but we have to be prepared for it. The payroll accounts have been increased relative to the bargaining union contracts, and the new positions and payroll are the majority of the increase to the budget change to the police department budget increase. We have recognized our budget to include much-needed changes and self-funded without additional increases to cover the increased cost to the new larger HVAC system and therefore larger costing maintenance contract. We have changed the method of using cell phones to meet the department's needs. We ran into a situation in a homicide where one of our officers is using their personal phones, and if you've watched across the nation over the past couple of years, it's not a good thing for officers to be using their personal cell phones, because they've been used in criminal cases, and I don't want to put my officers in that position. So we've made a decision to put cell phones in all the police cruisers so they can use those. That officer's cell phone could be used in the homicide investigation that happened here last summer. And it was very instrumental in catching the suspect. So we looked at that, we looked at what's going on across the country, using the case law and the cases in court, and we decided that that was the best option for our officers. The detectives have already had cell phones that were donated to them, so we made a decision to put them in the police cruisers for the officers. They can do follow-ups if an officer goes to a person's house. If the person has to call them back because they weren't there or whatever, they can call that line, we leave the number, they can call right straight to the cruiser. They don't have to go back to the police department and come back on the street. It just makes a lot of sense. We have covered the cost of software maintenance for AppleTrack recruitment software. Our budget continues to be comprised of 90% payroll-related accounts and 10% operational. Recruitment and department issue required budget increases due to turnover and associated cost, with a budget increase of less than 1%. Our HVAC building project was completed in January. We are seeing what appear to be improved efficiencies. FY '22 and '23 cannot be used as a measurement as the building was closed down in areas for a period of time throughout that time. Utilities and maintenance are priority areas of budget. If after a consistent time and utility efficiencies hold true, we have other areas for budget that we would address within our budget. Examples, automotive parts and tires, as you know, have all gone up. Building repairs such as replacing costly garage bay doors that are rotting out, replacing carpet that has been there since I've been there. I need to replace costly evidence equipment that is continually put off, just as an example. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, questions? Alderman Jettie?
Thank you. So Chief, you talked about a large number of resignations that you were not expecting, and you talked about exit interviews with these officers who left, and you said something about the pension that we all know about. Can you elaborate on that? What is it about the pension that would cause people to leave?
Sure, so what they did is they changed the retirement bill a couple of years ago. So when we all came on, the deputy and I, you could do 20 years retire or at 45. You can't collect till you're 45, so I came on at 22, so 20 years of service, I would get 50% of my 3 highest years. I could start collecting that at 45. So if I came on at 22, I was also, every year after 20 years, I was getting a 2.5 increase. So some of these officers that came on with the same conditions that they got hired at, the state changed the retirement and added years to their length of time that they were supposed to do. They weren't allowed to do 20 years and retired. Some would do, some got up to 5 years in addition. They also decreased the amount of the pension from 2.5, I think it was 2.0. So their conditions changed in retirement. So some guys had already done 10 years, some guys have done 7 years, but 10 years or more, and they decided to leave, that they didn't want. And there's a lot of other factors involved too, but I kept hearing that complaint to me. And again, when we came through our first half of our career, we never saw people leaving with 7 years on it. We lost a kid recently, detective, promising career. He had 7 years on, was in the Detective Bureau, graduated from West Point, definitely would have been a future leader here. Left, went to the private sector. That never happened. So it's very disappointing. And we lost some caliber guys to the federal agencies. Again, their reasoning was retirement. The retirement system changed because the federal system did not change.
Okay. So.
Follow-up, Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, thank you. Please, so the changes in the pension system, that this is something out of our control, this is something that the state did?
Yes.
There's nothing
It's
we
not
can do?
just that. That was their number, some of them, that was their number one complaint.
Mhm.
There's other factors, I'm sure you've seen them on TV. You know, it's just at times can be a thankless job, and things have changed over the years. You know, we used to have a pool of 300, 400 people show up at our test. And again, that's one of the changes we did. We used to test a couple times a year. Right now, we're testing once a month. Every month we have a test. And there's been many tests over the last 6 months where we've had maybe 20 people show up for the test, 15 people show up for the test. Half of them don't even pass the written or physical test. And then after that, if you pass the written and physical, then you get an oral board. We've come out of these tests with 0 candidates after the oral board. Last month, we had 3 people pass the written and physical test. They came in for an oral board on Monday, they all failed. So we're not lowering our standards. In the past year, in fiscal year, we've lost 4 or 5 officers who have made it all the way to the end. Something either came up in their background, or we found something out, where we thought they were viable candidates, and right at the end, and this is months of investigation of doing their background, we lose them. We lost one that was an officer for 10 months. He didn't cut it, so, we're not just gonna hire anybody because we're down people. We're not gonna lower our standards.
Thank you. So when you say that you're sure that I've seen it on TV, can you elaborate on that? I'm sorry
Just
if
the bad publicity.
Okay. You're talking about apparently you're talking about some people,
The negativity toward the profession.
right, some people have a
Yes,
negative attitude towards the
Sure.
police department.
sure.
I think, hopefully, it's a very small minority of people who think
But
that.
it does turn people off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you were copied on, we got a letter from one of the citizens who attended the police academy, talking about how impressed he was with the National Police Department and how much he learned about, you know, how much more the police department does than was apparent to him before he attended the police academy, so. Yeah, I know you've probably seen the letter, but, you know,
Yeah,
for the,
I've talked to
for
him.
the public, you know, a citizen who attended the police academy, you know, just came away, very impressed with you and your department. And, so I just thought I'd mention that. And I'm sorry that a small minority of people are discouraging our officers from continuing this as a career.
Yeah, and, you know, you just don't expect 9 guys in that range to leave. I mean, we put a lot of time and effort into them, to training them, outfitting them, and, you know, the experience they've gained from 1 to 13 years is great, you know, and those guys, some of them that left, is sad to see leave, because they would have definitely been, you know, you can see the future leaders of the department, and, you know, whether they went to the private sector or the federal agencies, you know, it's a tough loss. You can't make that up, it takes a long time.
Thank you. I have
Follow-up?
another, and you mentioned the need for more officers, not only to replace the ones that have left, but in addition to that, because of the growth of the city, additional housing, and you mentioned, you know, one of the casinos, Boston Billiards, moving to the old Sheraton, or I guess it's the new Sheraton
Yeah.
Hotel, and then another one at the Pheasant Lane, possibly another one at the Pheasant Lane Mall. So, you know, I wasn't aware, you know, do casinos cause problems, or is a need for more officers because of casinos?
And they can cause problems. There's gonna be a larger population in the city, I mean, attending these casinos. So I don't wanna wait till the minute before we act on it. I mean, we're gonna have to allocate sources down to that area. Like I said before, we have one sector that covers that area. We're definitely gonna have to put more people down there. And right now, you know, in a recent study, 2 years ago, we're spending, I think it's 45 minutes on a call. You know, these guys are spending more times on calls. So if they're on a call, how are they gonna respond down there? So I can just foresee that we need to add more police officers. Like I said before, Manchester has 260, Lowell has 250. You know, we're at 179, they allocated 2 more, we're at 181. And if the budget was approved, we'd be at 182. So I don't wanna wait till the last minute.
Okay,
And
thank you.
we are working to recruiting and hiring people, so we're not sitting on our hands, you know, but it's a battle, like I said. When you go from years ago having 300-400 people attending tests to become police officers, now you're down to 20 to 30 people might sign up and half of that show up. That's alarming.
All said, Alderman Jay?
Yes, thank you.
Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you very much. Chief Rourke, I am going to spend a little bit more time on staffing. I mean, you said it is 90% of your budget, so I think it's important to stay on that for a little bit. I was just comparing year over year, and I know it's one or two. I'm trying to come up with how we get to the number of 181 or 182. I see that you have 135 patrolmen, then you have 25 sergeants, and then there's captains in there as well, correct?
7 captains.
7 captains. Okay, so that, I don't know, does that get us, that doesn't get us to 182, right? Does it?
No, we have lieutenants too.
Lieutenants, got it. Okay, Mr. Rank there.
That's all right.
Okay. I did notice that, so my question is around, last year you budgeted for 136 patrolmen. This year it's 135, one less. But you have 25 sergeants this year, 24 last year. So,
We moved a patrolman, we promoted to a sergeant. We created a position that we thought was in need for the department, a public information officer. He does that half the time, and he's also in charge of overseeing our communications and dispatch personnel.
okay, so that's a public information officer. Okay. Could I have a follow-up, please?
Follow-up?
This year on your staffing, which I didn't see last year, and I think you touched on it in your opening comments, that you have 3 first-year officers budgeted as,
2. And that one, then that one sergeant position that we,
Can I comment, please?
yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Karen?
It would be in the budget related to where the current budgeted position would be moving. The chief is referring to the 2 additional, but our current hire would probably still be a first-year officer in the budget until their anniversary, and then they would move to second. So what you're looking at is based on budget, and so the answer would be 3.
Okay, all right. I
Both are
appreciate.
correct.
All right, I appreciate you calling that out. Could, just one more.
Follow-up? Good.
So around the 135, I was trying to do the math, and so where are you currently right now with, against that 135?
down 11.
Karen Smith, 11 would be with the 2 escrowed positions. Legislation is going through to, one more Board of Aldermen meeting, to move the escrow funding from the, our budget. It's not in our budget, it's an escrow. If those funds are moved to the overtime, the expendable trust fund, we would lose those positions. So the 11 that the chief just mentioned would come down by 2 to 9.
Okay. So just a big, like, an overall question, I mean, even if we sat here and we budgeted 15 more patrolmen and women, it would be a very difficult hill to climb to fill those positions in a year.
15, yeah, that's why I'm only asking for 2.
Yeah, okay.
We've hired, since the calendar year, since January, we've hired 7. We have 3 more we're hiring in a couple weeks, so we're at 10. Last year, we hired calendar year 15. We're doing pretty good. We got 10 slated already halfway through the year. I mean, they're gonna get hired in July, but it's right after the fiscal year starts, but I'm gonna count that the first half of the year because we've already done, all their backgrounds are done. They're ready to get hired.
Right.
We try to, when we hire someone, we hire them a couple weeks in advance of the police academy, and the police academy starts at the end of July. So we would hire them 2 to 3 weeks prior to that to get their uniforms set, give them 2 weeks of training in our FTU unit, firearms, defensive tactics, and then we would send them to the police academy, so.
Okay, so and even though, oh, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, I'm done.
I was gonna say, so even though you have budgeted 135, if you were to get to that level, you have the hierarchy, you have the leadership team in place, and by that I mean sergeants, lieutenants, captains, et cetera, to manage that team of 135, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I
Follow
think
up?
I'm done.
You
No,
done?
I think I'm done.
Yes, Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. I was reading through your book. It's very helpful to get this ahead and to be able to read it all. But I was especially interested in the mental health training for your officers, and if someone could speak to that, I think that's huge.
Well, the deputy here a couple years ago, when we were working midnights, and I was working second shift, found a school first, mental health first aid, which was throughout the country, but not so much up here. He found a grant, and we sent all of our officers through it. We sent 2 officers to the school to get trained so they could train everybody else. So all the new officers that are coming in are still getting trained by, well, one of those officers left, so the one lieutenant who is still trained in that, all our officers are trained in that. We have CIT, which is critical incident team, which trains mental health. All these officers are getting extra training. I wanna say we have probably anywhere from 40 to 55 officers that are trained in that now. That's just a guesstimate, because we keep sending them through the schools. And those officers can go out there firsthand and help these people get services that they need. They actually just implemented it in the police academy, so every officer in the state will receive this advanced training on mental health. We are always on the forefront of that. And then Deputy Fay is definitely one of the guys that have led that charge from the mental health first aid, and we just continue to train in that every year. And we want to get all our officers trained in the CIT program, but again, it's costly and it takes money. We send 6 officers up there, we're backfilling those spots, but it is a goal. I would say we're one of the leading departments in the state, definitely in the mental health training.
And all of the ways too.
Yeah.
Follow up?
Follow up?
Legal Bureau needs another attorney and paralegal. Is that in this budget or not in this budget?
It's not. You approved last budget meeting, last year, the one attorney. As you know, any profession out there, it's tough to find people. It took us, we just hired our 4th attorney that you approved last year, last month. So that's how long it took. We did have, through a hiccup in that, is we did lose one. So we were able to hire, we replaced her with a police prosecutor from up north, who was also a police officer, but also a lawyer, which was a great addition to the department. He came in, and then we just found a female attorney out of Wyndham that's our 4th attorney. So we have 4 attorneys going, and it is very busy in there. They've changed the way they do business over in court. They've changed the procedure where right now we're seeing anywhere from 5 to 15 trials scheduled a day. So that's a lot of subpoenas, that's a lot of cases that has to get ready for court each day. That takes a toll on the legal division. They're statewide, they've just generated kind of, not a task force, but a group to speak about it, just because it's costing people a lot of money in their budgets, where you're subpoenaing police officers every day. Now, there's no court in the state that can handle 15 trials in a day. If they get through 2 or 3, that's a miracle. But they're just scheduling anywhere from 5 to 15 trials a day, just trying to get rid of some cases. And I think it's to catch up from COVID, and they've changed the way they do business, so it is taxing on the departments. It's really taxing on smaller police departments who have complained about this problem now a little bit more louder than others. So it's in the works to try to rectify the problem.
Thank you. One more?
Follow up?
Yeah, can you talk about Riverside, the acquisition and modification of the property at Riverside?
Sure. We're still in the process of, we did the first assessment. They came back with some ideas of what we need to fix. Now we need to do another assessment on it to find out how much it will cost. So we're in the process of that. again, there are some things that, the security obviously is number one. You know, some cameras, fencing, you know, for us, we're not looking to make it Taj Mahal. We're just looking, if you go down to Pine Street, you'll see that building and what we've worked in for the last couple of years. You'd be amazed. So we're not asking for the world at all. We want a safe place that is secure.
The Pine Street building is
Oh, yeah,
interesting.
yes,
Thank you.
no problem.
Any other questions? Oh, yes, Alderman
Oh,
Karen.
thank you. You know what I'm gonna ask.
Sure.
Yes, yeah, and I do too appreciate this. I don't usually sit on budget, but this was great to have. So my question that I've asked at every meeting is when I look at the budget, your budget, and I look at the mayor's, it's the same. I don't see anything that shows if he reduced a line item or added to it. So did he take something out that you really wanted or put something in that you needed that we don't see within the budget?
No. Again,
Nothing.
we have a long list of wants,
Well, everybody, yeah.
like everybody does.
Yes.
But we put forward our needs that we thought was important to the department and the city. Increasing, you know, people in uniform is our number one.
Priority.
But the problem is we gotta find them.
Well, yeah,
So,
that's,
no, the answer to your question is no.
no, so everything's okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Other questions, Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, thank you. So Alderman Sullivan, one of your answers to one of his questions kind of triggered a question in my mind. So when you have a new recruit, you said that they spend 2 weeks here before they go to the police academy? Can you tell us, so when you hire a new person who hasn't worked at another police department, so this is a brand-new person, how much training do they get? Can you take me through how much, what do they get here, then the police academy, and then after they've finished the police academy, how much more are they riding along with another officer and that type of thing? How long does it take before, can you take me through that and
Sure.
tell me how long it takes to get a new guy or new woman on the street?
Sure. So after their background, we swear them in, hire them. Anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, we'll hire them before and swear them in. They'll spend, like I said, 2 weeks with the firearms training unit and teaching them how to, shoot a firearm, defensive tactics. We might go over some policies. We tried to, and Deputy Fay, he was a captain of professional standards, we tried to get him to get out in the cruiser and do a ride-along so they can see what it is like out there. So when they go to the academy, it might be, they might have some background there. So, but once they do 2 or 3 weeks, they go to the police academy for 16 weeks. Once they get out there, they'll get assigned 2 training officers. At the same time, we split them up. They'll do 12 weeks with them. If they pass that, they'll be on their own out in the street. But they also, at some point during their first year, we get them into a procedure school where they learn about the city, policies, the nonprofits we deal with, things of that. We'll have classes for 2 weeks with them. They'll do the first aid mental health training in those 2 weeks. So,
The procedure school is 2 weeks?
2 weeks, correct.
And then the mental health,
That's an 8-hour block.
8 hours?
But if they're coming out of the police academy now, they're already trained as CIT. They're just starting that. I think their first classes that's gonna be trained in that is July.
Okay. So thank you.
All set? Yes, Alderman Wiltshire.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about the traffic unit. I know you mentioned in here that you might reinstate the traffic unit.
Oh, we do have the traffic unit. We did that last year when I first started. So we have a 2-man traffic unit.
Yeah.
We have a sergeant that oversees it and fields all the complaints and gives it to the officers. We have one that is on day shift and one on second shift. and if I had more people, I'd have more people in the traffic unit, because that's the biggest complaint I get.
Yeah, I
Yes,
bet,
I'm sure.
I bet it is.
But, you know, we didn't have a traffic unit, we had a traffic unit, then we got rid of them, they allocated resources to different areas, and when I came in as chief, I thought it was very important to have a traffic unit, since it's my number one complaint.
Thank you.
Yes, Alderman
Thank you.
Sullivan?
Thank you very much. I was looking at your highlights and accomplishments for 2023, and one jumped out at me about the juvenile arrests down 20%. And I just jotted down a question: how did you do that?
That's a great question. I think there's just there was measures put into effect, of, you know, sending them into the court diversion programs earlier, speaking with getting them services earlier, than making arrest. You know, that was handed down to us, that best practice to go. So we started doing that, and the results paid off.
So more of just early intervention?
Early intervention, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, congratulations on that success. I think that carries through, and hopefully that trend continues as you go and you build on that.
Yep.
Well done.
Well said.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez?
So Chief, Representative and former Alderman Plamondon has brought up several times the suggestion that the parking department be moved back under the ownership of the police department. Can you give me your opinion, your impression of that?
Well, that was taken off, that was before I was chief, so. That was
You would like to
that was
send them
under
back?
Chief Lavoy, and again, I was, I think, a captain at that point. I had no input in that, so I don't know what was talked about, why they did that, I have no idea.
He's more interested in any movement in moving the department back to the police department.
I guess we would have to sit down and talk about it, whoever would want that.
Okay.
If that's something that, City Hall would want, I guess we could talk about it.
Okay. And then if I could just follow up.
Follow up?
The open letter that was sent to the board regarding the Citizens Academy and the positive comments. I just wanted to echo those comments. I just completed the Citizens Academy last night, sorry. And I highly recommend all the other Board of Aldermen members attend it. This is my second time doing it. But getting a refresher on the breadth and the scope of the different departmental activities, the cross-trainings of the officers, and getting to meet with the officers and hear the kind of things that they're working on and the kind of activities that they do, I think is very, very beneficial. I would definitely encourage any members of the public to do it. And I wanted to commend you and your leadership team at the police department for the job that you're doing.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It was great.
It is.
I appreciated the
questions?
dogs.
Other questions? Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, thank you. So, a lot of people in my ward wouldn't forgive me if I didn't mention this. So I represent Ward 5, and so the major routes through Ward 5 are West Hollis Street and Main Dunstable Road. And I get a lot of, people often complain about, you know, the speed of vehicles, and also the noise that, you know, that some vehicles cause. I think, I don't, you know, I hear them, I don't see them, so I think they're motorcycles that, you know, stop at, you know, are stopped at the traffic lights, and then when they start off, you know, they rev up at high revolutions. I'm assuming the speed is high as well. But, you know, is there anything that your department can do to try to send the message to those people who are causing that noise, that it's, that you know, that they might, you know, that they're subjecting themselves to penalties of some kind, or, you know, is there anything you can do about reducing, you know, the speed of the vehicles and the noise that some of them cause?
if there's a consistent time of day or day that you see the speeding vehicles, rush hour traffic, morning, afternoon, you can call us and we'll send the traffic unit out there. Again, there's one on second shift, one on first shift. If we do get complaints, we will address the complaints in that area. Call in at the time that you think it's happening. I mean, you live in a big ward, West Hollow Street and Main Dunstable Road, there's one officer out there that covers that area. You know, if he's tied up on a call, he's not gonna be doing any traffic enforcement, but if they have a specific time or day, we can definitely send the traffic unit out there, or, you know, the sector car that covers that area, but that is a big area to cover for one guy. But if they call it in, we know about it, we can address it.
So, Mayor, if I-
Follow up?
you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The problem, of course, is that, you know, when somebody hears something and calls, by the time the officer
Sure.
responds, the vehicle is left.
Sure, but
Here.
if they're speeding at a certain time, whether it's one of the rush hours, we can, in a certain area, that they see that the violation's happening, we can address that area.
Okay, thank you.
All set? Alderman O'Brien?
Yeah, thank you. Two things, Mr. Chairman. But first, you can stop the motorcycle, and then it's your opinion. You don't have the decimeter, correct?
We have some sort of one, but it's not,
Yeah.
it's
Maybe you
difficult.
could
It's not
explain
easy.
to Alderman Jettie, because it's
not easy.
presumptive, you know.
Yes.
You take, this goes on as a state rep, I hear it constantly
Yes.
at Hampton Beach, and I think you can anticipate what their issue is, you know, so it's much worse, you know. But the second thing, maybe we should get you a decimeter to help out with that, you know. But the other thing I just want to let you know, today we had the state budget. I did not vote for it, one of the token few. But how can I be without any hypocrisy? Sit here in the automatic chamber and then say, look at the raping of our pension system, which was taken out completely. It doesn't work, you know, particularly with recruitment and retention. That's across many teachers, police, fire. So, you know, I didn't like it, so voted against it. So we'll try next year.
Everybody all set? Just a couple things. One, just so people know, you talked about the time it takes to get a police officer on the street and the time you hire them. But that's also a cost per person. And if you get a person through training and then they leave. So Karen may know the answer. How much does it cost for that trainee to get from day one to on the street? Roughly.
You're looking for the cost for outfitting?
The cost for, the total cost of getting that police officer from hired and on the street, all that amount of time and training and,
I do have that. Let me just take a minute to pull up my file.
okay. While she's doing that, the other thing is, you know, you said you had cell phones in the cars. Are the cell phones in each individual officer, or are they in the cars?
Nope, just in the cruiser, so.
So the
So
guys on the
cruiser-
motorcycles and the bikes, do they have them? No?
No, we don't have them yet.
Oh, okay. All right. So the other thing that came up was parking enforcement, but I believe that was your question, right, Alderman Lopez?
Yes.
So if parking went back to the police department, that would require more people,
Yes.
more time, and police officers get paid a lot more than, I'm sure, our parking enforcement people get paid right now, so that's an additional cost to the budget. Yes, Mr. Tolner, would
If
you
the
like to?
committee would allow, I can explain to people about the parking enforcement, because I actually was in those meetings. So it was a number of years ago, and City Hall came to the chief and myself and said that they were interested in taking over parking enforcement for a number of reasons. The first reason was there was some conversation that more revenue could be generated by the opportunity to apply more enforcement into those people that were illegally parking. So that was the first reason why. So we agreed. So you have the parking enforcement officers who are not actually police officers, but they're actually working for City Hall, but those vehicles and that personnel were able to go into the police department at any given time. But the other concern that was brought up was the pressure that it put on dispatch. So if the police department was responsible for parking enforcement, some of those calls would have gone to dispatch, where under this agreement between the police commission and City Hall was that they were going to move those parking enforcement officers to City Hall. And then if the public had any inquiry or issue with the parking ticket, they were able to call one central location. So the public would have a very quick opportunity to address any of the concerns that they would have with the parking ticket. And then those individuals and those cars would be the responsibility of City Hall. So given those situations, we were also interested in it because it did free up the opportunity for officers, to concentrate on more important things. So at that time, we looked at it as a win-win. And as far as we're concerned, I think has worked out. So the last, Chief Lavoie, Chief Garignan, and Chief Rourke, I think, would agree that it's probably a better solution overall for the police department. So if there's an issue with parking enforcement, then I think it's a good opportunity for us to relook at the program that's in there now. But that would be something that would be handled by City Hall.
Okay, thank you. All right. By the way, this book was great. It's a lot of information in there. Yes, I'm pretty sure Ms. Smith generated that book, and thank you for that. It's really good information, and it also goes to show just how much work and how much crime's taken off the street by the police department without all the fanfare you see on the nightly news. You guys do a very efficient, very effective job of keeping Nashua safe, including mentioning in there that we were voted the second safest city in the United States. That's pretty important, and several times the best city to live in the country. So that's very important, and a large part of that goes to our municipal employees, but especially the police department. So another thing I wanted to mention is that, I don't know if you can validate it or not, but I know that the Boston Billiards, which is going to move to the hotel, but it's going to be months away, their security force, most of them are ex-police officers, some of them from Nashville. And so they keep pretty good control inside the building. I'm assuming any issues they have is when somebody leaves the building. But I'm pretty sure they're very tight on making sure that people aren't in a position where they can't drive. In fact, I know on occasion they have called somebody to come pick them up and take them home. So can't validate for the other casino that's being addressed, but as I understand it, that's not anything close either. The one question that has come up in those discussions is the parking lots for that building are all in Massachusetts. So who maintains what goes on in that parking lot? Do you have an agreement with Tingsboro, or does Tingsboro have to come up, and are they going to need more officers because now you're going to keep something open till 4 in the morning instead of 10 o'clock at night? So I imagine they're impacted as well, and that'll come up as it goes through the process. I don't know if you want to address I don't know whether you know the security force at Billiards.
Yeah, they do a good job there. It's a former officer that used to work here is the manager.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they have a Merrimack police officer that works on his team. And the officer is Dan Archibald.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the Delaware North is the company, and one of their head guys is a former police officer from Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very pro-police. They seem like they have pretty good, strict policies. they've already changed the ways down there. You know, none of those people had training before. Dan's now in charge of training all the security officers, so they do a really good job. And I know that his team is gonna have to grow when they move down to exit 1 for sure.
Right. So, the other thing, you're talking about hiring, I know that the departments around Nashua, and especially the state police, are also very short of personnel. Especially the state police, I heard a number 80 short,
When I talked to the colonel, a couple weeks ago, he's 68,
68. So
which is, you
there's a
know,
lot of competition as well as,
yes.
having a hard time, finding people who want to be police officers. They have to be really dedicated. So, again, competition, but I think we do pretty well.
Well, you supported our budgets and our contracts, and I can tell you right now that our head is above water because of that. When we pay our certified, we've hired many certified officers in the past couple, we've hired them over the years. I'm actually worked in another department before I came here, but we've hired many certified officers in the last couple of years and done very, very well. And that's a tribute to working together and signing the contracts. You know, let's not hide anything, but the salaries attract people here. Not only the police department as a professional police department, but the bottom line is that they look at the salaries before they transfer to another police department. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that one. So we pay well, and it attracts the good officers that, from other departments, and I will tell you, we've got some really good ones in the last year.
I've heard they also appreciate that we're certified by CALIA, and
Sure. You guys know the department as well as anybody.
yeah. All right,
You might have your answer now.
oh,
I do have your answer. Karen Smith. To answer the question regarding the costs for a new hire, we have, breaking it down by department issue, which it would include initial issue gear, pre-employment costs, and their department issue clothing. That roughly is around $6,000. And then depending on the hire, whether it's a first-year officer, a certified, or a certified two, could range from 62 to 82. And then, of course, you get all your benefits, which would be your pension and Medi, FICA, health insurance. So bottom line could be anywhere from tops of 133 or 20,000, less than that is the range, so around 133.
so costs a lot of money to bring
1,000.
somebody on board.
Yes.
And
Seems like-
don't forget about the time and effort of doing their background, testing, the man hours that we put forth in that.
Mhm. So my last question is, I could have sworn when I read in the book that your recruiting dollars are down this year from last year. Do you think you have enough for recruiting, or
I'm not sure which line you're talking about for recruitment.
there's a recruiting line in there that I think,
Yeah, I feel comfortable with the way we prepared
okay,
the budget, yes.
All right.
Thank you.
if you're comfortable, I'm comfortable. Any other last minute questions? All right, thank you very much for coming in, appreciate you being here, and appreciate the job you're doing.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Okay. Alderman O'Brien.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion to place back on the table R23-125, which is the pending budget.
Motion on the floor is to retable the budget resolution R23-125. All in favor signifying by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I believe that, yeah, I believe the next time we take it off the table will be the public hearing, which is the 20th. The wrap-up will be the 21st. If we don't finish on the 21st, the following Monday is a regular budget meeting. We'd have to do that as a wrap-up. And the 27th is the, when we more than likely will be passing the budget for FY24. Okay, general discussion? Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. It strikes me this year, even though I sat through the budget process last year, I was just overcome with a lot of numbers, and so I didn't really pay much attention to it. This year, it strikes me that, as we just heard, some folks may disagree with me, but there are things that money can't pay for and you can't allocate and appropriate in a budget. And really what it is, in just my opinion, is, and it's a larger discussion, and I don't know who has it, but there's a larger discussion that needs to go on in society about the people that raise their hand to do these jobs. The policemen, the firemen, the teachers, trash collectors, your civic employees. To me, that's kind of my theme as I look at, I weave the narrative together of what's going on in the city, and yes, there are dollars and cents to it, but just the overall obligation of folks out there that say, yeah, you know what, I'll step up and I'll do that job. I think that just needs to happen, and maybe that's now, maybe that's now because I'm a dad of a future Army officer, and I see the need for that in our society. So that's just my thoughts, and I know that, I was happy that they addressed it. Probably a lot of folks forget, but part of the reappropriation of the prior year escrows, I was not for those 2 extra positions, and it was interesting to me that money didn't end up getting used this year, and so I was happy that they addressed that at least, and understanding that recruitment is just an issue here and throughout the city, and not just our city. I'm sure it's cities all over this country. So I just, since we're having general discussion, I thought I would bring up a general point.
Okay, any other comments? All right, there's no one here for public comment. And I think we already covered remarks by Alderman, unless somebody has something else. Nope. All right, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make the motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 7:57 PM.